I've got a question for you this morning. Does anybody in the room have anything that you would like to see different in your life, change, called in, new in your life? Okay, of course we do, right? We are evolving wonderful human beings. And that's what we do. We're always inspired for something new, aren't we? There's always an urge within us to create something new. Create something new. And Ernest Holmes, our founder and the author of The Science of Mind, says every one of us personally has back of us the potential of the universe. Can you even imagine that? The potential of the universe. That's not just Tony Robbins' idea of unlimited potential, is it? When we say the universe, that's huge. That's huge. There is an irresistible potential pressing against everyone for self-expression. If we listen, we will hear it, not as a voice, but as a feeling, that divine urge to express. If we believe in it, it will manifest through us, and if we keep our consciousness active and alive to it, staying present to the ideas of the desire, the volume that flows through us by our consent, by our yes, will necessarily increase. Have you ever heard the saying, when you turn to the universe turns to you? When you finally make a decision and say yes, it seems like everything you need comes flooding in all of a sudden. Where have you been all my life, right? It just suddenly comes flowing in. And that's what we're talking about here. It's when we are, the universe is pressing against us, and when we say that yes, it goes, okay, great, here you go. But we're creatures of choice. We're beings of choice, so we have to say yes first, don't we? We have to say yes first. Ernest ends this quote with a word of caution. He says, but we have to believe it will. We have to believe it will. So, and I think that may be a little disconnect that sometimes happens with us when we go, well, I said yes, I said I want that, right? But we don't really believe that we're going to receive what we need in order to make that happen in our lives. That we're not going to meet the right person, or we're not going to receive the great career, or we're not going to get the clean bill of health when we go see the doctor for our confirmation that we're healthy, right? There's a disconnect in the belief. And that's what he's speaking of here. We must believe that it will support us. We must have faith and believe that our core being, that this volume of good is going to increase through us. At our core being. But welcome to September, where this month we are talking about the principles of successful living. The principles of successful living. And how to play this game of life. Don't you want to get better at life? Yeah. And the practices and the principles of the science of mind help us to do that through spiritual practice, through spiritual law, through understanding how the universe works in our favor and allowing us to step into that flow as opposed to being in resistance to everything. So our theme this month is choosing success. Pretty simple. Choosing success. And my talk this week is the magic of spiritual practices. I can hear you all groaning on the inside. Not again, she's going to talk about spiritual practices again. Well, yeah, I am. Because it has become very evident and clear to me in the last couple of weeks that our spiritual practices are the absolute key to living a continuing happy life. They're the key. I had the opportunity to listen to many of our top speakers at Asilomar when I was up there. We had morning sessions with the whole group and evening sessions with the whole group, and we had anywhere from 2 to 3 speakers each time. So it was a wonderful, wonderful immersion in our teaching. One of our ministers recently said, science of mind's alive and well, because that's what we heard. We heard the Ernest Holmes quotes from Sermon by the Sea. We heard how we are a teaching of possibility, not positive thinking. We heard spiritual principles taught. It was wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. There was 500 of us there, so it was a large crowd. It was a wonderful, large crowd that we were immersed in. And as we were emphasizing this theme, the whole theme of the conference was on sacred ground. Because everybody considers the Silmar the sacred place of religious science. But what we all came to realize, of course, is that any place we stand is sacred ground, isn't it? Any place we stand is sacred ground. As I read the book that we've got this week, this month, the Seven Spiritual Principles, what is it? Seven Spiritual Laws of Success. And I had conversations with ministers and laity and practitioners and people I knew and people I didn't know. And my own observation of my own practices, my own life, I realized that when we're not doing our deep work, we're not living to our full potential. And it's interesting. We all stumble in our spiritual practices. We all trip over our beliefs. Sometimes we even faceplant into negativity. And it can be on a minor scale or it can be on a major scale. The dark night of the soul, as we've heard it called sometimes. But we're all on the path, on the journey, aren't we? And that's just part of it. It's been said that science mind, the theology that we teach, is spiritual teaching that will heal your heart without insulting your intelligence. And I love that phrase. It really resonated with me when I heard it. And it's what's kept me interested in science of mind for over 20 years. Because it does teach me ways that I can heal my heart when things happen in life. Things always happen in life, don't they? We get beat up sometimes. We feel abused sometimes. We feel sad sometimes, whatever might be going on. But these principles help us to heal our hearts without insulting our intelligence. Because it is an intelligent practice, isn't it? It's in alignment with what's being proven today in science, backing up what we've been teaching for 100 years. So this is why we're talking about success principles right now. We all want to be happy. Don't we? We all want to be happy, right? And the more consistently we can feel happy in life, the more influence we have on those around us, don't we? Anybody know any curmudgeons in their lives? Those people aren't fun to be around, are they? Not really. But happy people are. Happy people are. So we're teaching success principles. And we're supplementing the science of mind teaching. There's a whole chapter in the book called Principles of Successful Living. We're supplementing that with Deepak's book all month long. So I guess the first question we need to answer is, what is success? Everyone in here has probably got a different definition of what success is. There's probably billions of different definitions out there. There's 20 or so references to success in the science of mind. And I like what Deepak says in his book in the introduction, which he calls it the continued expansion of happiness and the progressive realization of worthy goals. The progressive realization of worthy goals, building on themselves, right? He goes on to say, we achieve this through the knowledge and practice of spiritual law. Knowledge and practice of spiritual law. Now, you think of success principles, you might think of business, right? A lot of people teaching success principles out in the business world. But we recognize that when we can look at the spiritual principle, that those apply everywhere. When we're right with God, we're right with everything, aren't we? Everything just seems to flow better in that case. So learning how to, as Deepak says, achieve this through knowledge and practice of spiritual law is a key ingredient to success in all areas of life, both in business, relationship, finance, everywhere. So one of the things I was reminded of at Silmar was that our spiritual practices are the way that we connect with this universal presence, universal power, and that we keep our consciousness active, like Ernest suggested in that opening quote. That's how, and meditation in particular is the way that we do that. It's the super highway to connect, keep our consciousness connected in the one consciousness because we're all one, right? Because we're all one. We call this God. Deepak calls it pure potentiality. And that, of course, is his first spiritual law of success, is the law of pure potentiality. Now, he says that the source of all creation is consciousness, potentiality seeking form. Isn't that a beautiful way of saying that? The source of all creation is consciousness, and it's potentiality seeking form. And I think of that as, anybody seen the movie The Matrix? I think number 9 is coming out right now. And it's on that concept, that idea of the matrix that is we all live in, and like a computer or whatever. And I think of this universal presence pushing on us like that in some ways, and that it's just scanning all the time. It's sending out all of the good all the time, and it's scanning all the time for that yes. Oh, there's yes. Here's everything. Here's everything. There's a yes. There's a yes. Here's everything. And the thought that I had this morning as I was thinking about this craziness was it's also can be positive or negative. We see a lot of turmoil on our planet right now, in our world right now. And it's because people are saying yes to that. And the universe doesn't judge, right? It just says yes and pushes energy that way. And I believe in my heart that that's why we're seeing so much of that, which is why it's so important for us to not focus on that and to focus on the positive side, to focus on positivity, to not focus on those things, not be in resistance to that. I am sad when I see some of our ministers, practitioners, laity, pushing against the things that are happening in the world. We know how that works. We know how that works. The more we push against it, the bigger it gets, right? Because we're directing all of that energy to it. We have got to stay focused on what we want. We've got to stay focused on peace. We've got to stay focused on love. And I'm not being Pollyannish. This is real stuff. This is real stuff. We've got to stay focused on what we want to experience, not in resistance of what we don't want to experience. That it's critical that we do that. Back to Deepak's quote, he says, when we realize that we are a potentiality, we align with the power that manifests everything. Potentiality is in all of us, not just those of us in this room. It's in everybody on the planet. I am often reminded of the Wizard of Oz, when the house lands on the Wicked Witch and Dorothy pops out and the good witch comes and goes, are you a good witch? Are you a bad witch? Will you use your powers for good or your powers for evil? That's metaphysical, isn't it? I'm sorry. I think that's metaphysical. I always have thought that was metaphysical. How will you use your powers? Because you have a choice. Because you are pure potentiality. You get to direct the power of the universe through you. How will you use it? How will you use it? So we align with this power through our consciousness and through its. Again, it's all one. Being willing to train ourselves to be mindful. I notice I said willing. Willing. That's the first step, isn't it? You've got to be willing to do it. Willing to take the time. Willing to do the practice. Willing to make the effort. To be mindful, our minds, our bodies, to be still. You know, in our busy world, that's a luxury, isn't it? But it's an important luxury. It's just as important as taking care of our health and our bodies and our homes and our automobiles. We must take care of our spiritual self as well. When we do that, we no longer feel like a victim. We can heal our negative thinking. We're no longer at the whim of the media. or even the Weather Channel. Did anybody see that crazy stuff about the Weather Channel? How they were exaggerating the story of Dorian and where it was going to hit to make it a bigger catastrophe on the coast of Florida, when the European model was showing it way off on the east side and not hitting Florida. I mean, think about the implications of that. I don't know if they were or not. I saw it on Facebook. It must be true. But it's an interesting comment to even consider, isn't it? How many people in Florida were panicked, traveling, prices escalating, people buying things they may not need? I mean, think about that. The impact of that, if that's true. I don't know if it's true, but Ernest and Deepak agree on potentiality. Ernest says, we do not appear complete. Look around our world, right? We do not appear complete. We act as if we're temporal, limited, unprepared, and afraid. We are not so foolish as to think that people do not suffer, that they do not experience want, that they are not unhappy. But the potential I, the potential you is just as perfect as the inherent God. As the inherent God within. We live in pure, perfect potentiality, and it is up to us to grasp hold of it. To grasp hold of it, we must open the door. You've probably heard the Bible saying of Jesus, I will stand at the door and knock. But you got to open it. And the same is true here. This is what these gentlemen are saying to us, is that the universe is always pushing against us, always giving, always knocking. We have to say that yes. We have to open the door to it and stop resisting in the fear the good that we say we seek. The key is to believe that we are the God stuff. You heard Lori in her prayer, I am that which it is. I'm not all that it is, but I am that which it is. Because it is in and as me, because I'm a manifestation of it, because there's only one source of everything that is. It's an essence and a presence, and we are it in form. It's the potentiality of spirit manifesting in form of us, individualized and unique as each one of us. You ever think about life? I'm not talking about living. I'm talking about the life force within us. I sometimes contemplate that, because science tells us that the brain can die, right? But the body can live on, mechanically perhaps, but the body can live on. Or the heart, well, the life must be in heart. Well, no, the heart can die. They do transplants and take one heart out and put another one in, and there's no heart in the body for a while, and the body's alive. Again, machine. That's not life. What is life? Life is this thing called energy. If you've ever been in the presence of someone that has transitioned or passed away or died, there's a moment when you can tell life has left the body. And it's not the fact that they've stopped breathing. There's just an experience of, you can feel the life moving. You can feel the life energy essence moving. That's God. That's the God spark that is within each one of us. It's this thing called life, this thing that we can't yet create at the human realm. It's life. It's life. Holmes says there's an irresistible potential pressing against everyone for self-expression. That's the God source, pressing against us to be more, to evolve, be all that we can be as it. So daily meditation practice is one simple activity that we can use to activate this principle that we're talking about, and also to recognize and realize the God spark that we are. Being in that stillness, opening ourselves to that greater mind, that greater consciousness, allows us to really deepen into an understanding of our oneness with the divine. Another application of this law of pure potentiality is to spend time communing with nature. Yeah, right. Have you been outside lately? About 6 weeks from now, I'll do some of that communing stuff, right? I'll be happy to go out in 6 weeks, but now, but I have good news. There's other ways we can do that here in the hot, hot desert. You can watch a sunset from your air-conditioned window, can't you? You can watch the wind blowing through the trees. I always think about that being the breath of God, cleaning out the debris in the trees, right? Making room for the new. You can watch a thunderstorm on your patio. Hopefully we'll have at least one more. You can watch a monsoon and the power of that and the thunder and the lightning and the rain. That's nature, isn't it? You can look at a flower and observe its uniqueness, the living, the life of it. There are ways that we can do this. There's also this wonderful thing we have called the internet. And on it, you can go about any place, can't you? You can watch a mountain stream. You can gaze at a pond. You can look out over the Grand Canyon. You can watch the waves come in for a while. You can watch nature, wildlife. So we can connect in a lot of different ways without getting out in the heat. So communing with nature is another way that we connect with something natural, non-human, to know the infinite intelligence of God. We're talking about 6 weeks from now, hopefully, right? We'll cool down a little bit. The temperature will drop. And we know that that happens. Why? Because the Earth is moving and changing its axis and doing all that stuff, and we're heading into the solstice, and we get the shortest day of the year coming up, less light. Thank goodness we don't have to control that, right? But that we've got the seasons and things that happen. How miraculous is that plan? What intelligence is in that plan? Those are the things that we can observe and appreciate in connecting with nature. The final application that Deepak recommends in his book is the practice of non-judgment. We've talked about this before, haven't we? Being non-critical and non-judgmental. David Bruner and Reverend Dr. Michelle both opened up the first evening at Asilomar. And David is the senior minister at San Jose CSL. And he was speaking about being critical. And he handed out to everyone at the conference, all 516 of us, these bracelets. And the purpose of these is to wear them with the intention of not being judgmental or critical. And if we are, then in thought or word, we change wrists. Pretty simple, right? And you only have to do it for 21 days in a row. I'm not changing the bracelet. And he was very proud when he stood on stage and said he's been wearing the bracelet for 6 weeks and he's now on day 2. During his talk, he switched it back to day 1. He said something. I don't remember what he said, but he said something. So this is just a silly little reminder, isn't it? But it works because it keeps us conscious of our words and our thinking. When we're criticizing or blaming someone on the freeway, we're complaining about the long line at the grocery store, we're abusing ourselves because we made a mistake, right? Any of that stuff. And we know that that negative thinking is very, very destructive to us. It's very destructive to us because what we focus on expands in our life. Oh, well, gee, you want some more energy around that stuff to be critical about? You want to mirror back to yourself more people to criticize you? This is how the law works for us. It's impersonal. It does not care. It's up to us to direct that energy in the places that we want to experience it. I think that Deepak included this idea of being non-judgmental because he recognizes the spiritual practice of it and how that creates such detriment in our lives. And it's subtle. We don't even realize it, do we? We don't even realize it. Anybody else ever been snarky? It's my favorite word, snarky. Clothing police. What were they thinking when they walked out the door, right? Yeah. It's little things like that, even in those subtle ways, that are critical, judgmental, Those drivers are so bad on the road. They don't know how to drive. They don't know what they're doing. I'm the perfect driver, right? I never do anything wrong on the road, right? So, this is your ways that we are critical, and it's very subtle, but it's very undermining. Be careful with that. So we can see from exploring this law of pure potentiality that Deepak's definition that he gave us in the beginning, the continued expansion of happiness and the progressive realization of worthy goals, is achievable. It's achievable when we activate this law in our lives. So let's move into our practicing the principles of how we can practice this law of pure potentiality, recognizing that we are that pure potentiality because we are an outlet of the universal energy. We are an outlet of that. And as an outlet of that, we get to direct it. It's like a faucet. If you've got a kitchen faucet like I do where it gives you a stream or you have a button on it that it gives you a spray, we get to direct that. I can direct the water flow, whichever way I want it to go. Think of universal energy that way in your life. You can direct it. Do you want a stream or do you want a spray? Do you want it positive? Do you want it negative? Do you want it prosperous and abundant or do you want it in lack and limitation? You get to direct that. So our first principle, this is all a challenge to you this week, okay? Everybody up for a challenge? Oh, come on. What else you got to do? It's September. Up for a challenge. Next 7 days, next 7 days, commit yourself to do some deep inner work. Commit to do some deep inner work. Give your soul a gift. Connect with yourself and God for the next 7 days. Devote yourself to a meditation practice for the next 7 days. Commit to that. It's only 7 days, right? You can do that. Deepak suggests that we sit alone in silent meditation twice each day for 30 minutes. 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening. Oh my gosh, an hour. I can never find an hour in my day. How can that be? Remember a couple of weeks ago when we talked about the tendency of our thinking? That it was not about the 15 minutes we spent in prayer and meditation, that it was about the 23 hours and 3/4 that we spent thinking about all the other stuff. How about if you spend 23 hours thinking about the other stuff and actually an hour in the good stuff? An hour on both ends, bookend your day with the good stuff. Number 2, for the next 7 days, commit yourself to do the deeper work of communing with nature. That could be fun, right? That could actually be fun. And you might want to wait 21 days, but when it gets cooler, you can actually maybe do your meditation outside and combine some forces here, right? Yeah, double dip on some time. So again, it's weather, it's wind, it's sitting silently watching the sunset, it's listening to the sound of the ocean or a stream or smelling the scent of flowers. Anything that immerses you in nature and opens you to an appreciation of that unbounded creativity that's available to us, that infinite intelligence. And number 3, for the next 7 days, commit to the practice of non-judgment. Commit to the practice of non-judgment. Begin your day with a statement. This is a recommendation from Deepak. He says, "Today I will judge nothing that occurs, and throughout the day I will remind myself not to judge." Commit to judge nothing that occurs, and remind myself throughout the day. Get a bracelet if you need one. You don't have to get a fancy one. You can use a rubber band, actually, if you want to. But just notice how many times throughout the day you're switching the bracelet because there's a little judgment about someone, something, yourself. It's very, very insidious. So what if we all really knew that we were spirit in disguise? Would we walk in the world any differently if we knew everyone was spirit in disguise? Maybe. Let's close out today with a quote from Deepak Chopra. He says, "Once we understand our true nature and learn to live in harmony with natural law, a sense of well-being, good health, fulfilling relationships, energy and enthusiasm for life and material abundance will spring forth easily and effortlessly once we understand our true nature and learn to live in harmony with it. Pretty easy. Your true nature is the divine. Live in harmony with that. Allow the good to flow through you. So it is. Would you join me in a prayer this morning? How good it is that we come together in recognition of the one power, the one presence, one essence of life. It is that which we call God. We call source, pure potentiality, universal presence, power, love, harmony, balance, joy. It is all of this and so much more than we can ever put human words of limitation onto to describe it in any way. It is a relationship that we have with this inner knowing, this inner power that lives, moves, and has its being in, through, and as each one of us, as an expression of it. For we are all created of that one essence, that one life. And we live, move, and have our being in, through, and as it. And so from this place of recognizing our unity in this wholeness today, I speak my word for and about each of us. As I know, claim, and accept the pure potentiality of each one of us to be, have, and do everything that is within our imaginations at this moment for the good to be expressed as us in our lives. That we are open and receptive to this divine flow of good. And that we are guided and guarded in that expression, and that we are supplied with whatever we might need in order for that to come through us into form. Whether it's relationship or career or health or prosperity, financial flow, whatever it might be. If we're experiencing something negative in our lives we just can't see through, I know the clarity is there. The healing is there. And as we turn from that which we do not want more of in our lives and turn towards that which we want to experience, we know that the universal flow of energy is in that, calling it forth into our experience now. So how grateful I am for this knowing, for this manifestation, for this truth, and for the potentiality that each of us is. We didn't have to earn it. We didn't have to grow it. We didn't have to buy it. We just simply are it. It is a divine birthright of who we are. And for this I am grateful. As I release this into the activity of mind, the action of law, knowing that it is done, it is so, I release it and we affirm together by saying, and so it is.